Hi and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I'm Simon and today I am back with my mid-year chatty catch-up kind of video where I'm going to be talking about what's happened in the first of the year. I mean, I know that we're like now way over the midpoint of the year. It's the 201st day of the year. Lots of lovely stuff's happened in it, and so what I wanted to do was, even though I have done the mid-year freakout tag, I felt like I didn't get to have a chat really about my reading so much so far this year, or talk about any highlights that I've had this year in terms of bookish stuff rather than just the books that I've read, and also just like channel stuff. And then I thought I would talk about what my plans are in terms of reading, any projects or anything like that I've got coming up, and just stuff that I'm excited about, and sort of maybe where I would like the direction of my reading to go a little bit more. So if you want to pause this, go and grab yourself a beverage and come back for a natter, let's do it. I haven't got a beverage with me because I am fizzy popped up. I'm avoiding any further fizzy pops for the danger of burpages or also being a little bit hyper. At the midway point of the year, one of the things I guess people might want to know is how many books that I have read so far this year. I'm going to do how many books I'd read to the end of June, and at that point I had read 93 books. Now that is a lot of books. I have judged a prize this year, and we'll be judging another one in the second half of the year, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And so obviously that kind of reflects that in the fact that judging a prize, I'm paid to spend time reading those books and judging them. And I think that's why I'm always a little bit nervous of talking about the amount of books, because I'm aware that sometimes unintentionally, with people sharing how much they read and what they're reading, and I know I experience this feeling sometimes with loving so many bookstagrammers and BookTube channels, all that kind of stuff, it almost feels like a race, and I don't think reading should ever feel like that. And I'm aware that I, this year, have had to cram quite a lot of reading for work projects, not just the prize, but also for Sky Arts from Hay, which again, we'll talk about later. So I just thought I'd mention that. I did have to really work it out though, because my story graph, I mean, it's private, but like, it's a mess, frankly. And I think that's one of the reasons that I decided to, I mean, I binned off Goodreads a long time ago, but I decided to keep my story graph private, partly because I may review books that I read for work on there, which I think are probably findable, so that's a little bit of something I need to think about. But also, I kind of get into a mess with it, and last year was absolutely atrocious because I was travelling so much. I didn't keep it as well as I should, but I'm trying to work on that. I realised, like, for example, this morning I was looking through it and I saw that I hadn't even put all of my ratings of the Women's Prize shortlist up there yet. I read those ages ago. I thought I would just discuss, I mean, I mentioned in my mid-year freakout tag there were some disappointments. One book I forgot to mention was the only DNF that I've had this year, and that was The Shards by Bret, Easton, Ellis, which I know, well, I felt like all of Instagram was absolutely bookgasming over. Like, initially I was really, really intrigued by it, and I thought Bret Easton Ellis was playing some really interesting, not games exactly with the reader, but like the fact that the character was called Bret and was writing the books that Bret has written, and there was this murder going on. I thought all that was great. I then found that it just went too far in terms of the gratuitous nature of some of the icky, horrible, gruesome moments, which I know there have to be. Do they have to be? I felt like sometimes it would have been great for Bret to kind of make you do the work, because actually that could have been even worse. So would I have liked that? Would I not? I know what I mean. There was one point where they were almost like, there was a discussion around almost sexualizing a dead body, and I just thought, I'm out, I'm done. So I didn't get around to finishing that one, but I just thought I'd mention that. In terms of other stats, I know that I'm woefully behind on non-fiction, which I want to address in the second half of this year, and also that I have not really listened to that many audiobooks, which I do like to do, because generally I listen to non-fiction only on audio. I get so many people recommending me fiction on audiobook, and I just can't do it. It just doesn't retain. I find that I've just completely wandered off, and you know, I was suddenly like, oh no, I need to go back a chapter or possibly even 3. I would like to up my non-fiction reading, and when I do my favourite books of the year so far, I'm not going to include non-fiction. What I think I'm going to do is, hopefully I'll have read more by November. We'll come to this a little bit later, but I'm already on about it. I can do like my top 10 of the year so far or something like that, because I have read a few absolute non-fiction corkers. So in terms of highlights, before we talk about projects and prompts, which I want to have a chat with you about, highlights for the year so far, book-wise, have been judging the Royal Society of Literature's Christopher Bland Prize. I got to do that with Lem Cizé and Mina Kantasame, and it was an absolute delight. The Royal Society of Literature were great. It was a pleasure to work with them, and hopefully we're going to do some more work together in the future. But that was just a really, really lovely book club to be part of. That was fab. And then the other kind of high has got to be Sky Arts from Hay and getting to present my own book show on the telly, which I just would never in a million years have imagined would happen. I still can't quite believe it was real. I'm really it sounds odd to say proud of myself, but not because of the show, which I think was good. I can't say very good about myself because that just sounds weird. What I was proud about most was the fact that I made sure that I enjoyed every second of it. And I think previously, when I've done Sky Arts Book Club and stuff, I've been so worried about how I might look or sound or what I might say that I've kind of been focused on that. Whereas this time I was like, no, I'm going to enjoy every single minute. So every meeting that I had, I enjoyed. Every day actually filming and getting to meet the people who came on the show. Yeah, I just really, I was present with it, which I really enjoyed. And that's something that I feel like I'm turning a corner on. I feel like quite often I can be so worried about how something's going to be, I'm not quite in it. But since I've tried to be more present, I've actually noticed that I feel like I'm more confident, but also just more in the moment, more actively listening and doing better events and better things like that. That's just a random aside, but that was another highlight. And then another one has got to be, of course, reading the Women's Prize long list with Mum, which is always a real treat. And I think this year's been one of my favourite years that we've done it. Not just because I thought the long list was really good and the short list was particularly good. I don't know, again, I was more present with it. And then when me and Mum went to the Women's Prize live day, and then when we went to the party, I just felt, I was definitely more present with it, and sort of, I wasn't there with any work angle, which was really, really nice. So there we go. Now, speaking of my mother, me and my mum at the beginning of the year started to, well, last year we did it, but we were both a bit rubbish because we gave each other prompts. And I think because we gave them to each other, therefore we were quite good at sort of just letting them go if we didn't. However, we asked for all of you, and lots of you did suggest prompts for us. And I thought I would have a catch up on the 6 books that I've read for the prompts this year so far. Mum and I did a first quarter catch up, and I'll link the video where we announced the prompts down below so that if you want to join in, you can, because you don't have to do one every month. You can do the whole 12, well, actually it's 13, the whole gamut of them in the second half of the year if you want. So far, I read, for January, it was The New Life by Tom Crewe, which was, the prompt was to pick a book with a quote from a favourite author on the cover. This has a quote from Kate Atkinson, who I will definitely be getting to more in the second half of the year. I really liked this book. I thought it was really sexy. Gave you lots of food for thought. No, gave you lots of food for thought. Occasionally got a little bit academic. I'm really keen. Tom, if you see this, please do this. There is a couple in this book who are 2 gay men who are living together in the Peak District on farmland, and they appear in part of the book, and I was besotted with them, and I would like a whole book on them, please. So yeah, that was that one. Then for February, it was to read a book that had won the Stella Prize, which is like the Women's Prize but in Australia, only it's fiction and non-fiction. Also, they have an honorary male judge on the panel every year. This is The Strays by Emily Bitto. It's about 2 young girls who become friends. They're from very different walks of life in Australia. One of them is sort of living in this commune with her artist parents, and it's how the other becomes kind of embroiled in that family. And it's kind of like found family, but with a bit of toxicity in it, and I enjoyed it very much. Then for March, it was a book with your favourite colour on the cover. My favourite colour is purple, so I read Jollof Rice and Other Revolutions by Omolola, Ijeoma, Ogunyemi, and this is a short story collection that I really admired. It's one I think I would quite like to go back and reread because it's faded a tiny bit, as all books do with you. And I think I know whatever Omolola writes next, I will definitely read, because there's such a myriad of stories in here. It gives me excitement for her writing in the future. Then for April, it was read a book based in your favourite place. So I read a book based in New York, well, Manhattan, but New York is one of my favourite places on the planet. This is Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson, and this is firstly the American edition, because that cover is a stunner. This is about a well-to-do family. It focuses mainly on the siblings and in-laws within that family, and it's I think this is a perfect summer read. It almost sounds like I'm saying that like a bad thing, but I don't mean it like that, because this is a book that you start, you get hooked by all the characters and all the different dynamics, and you don't want to put it down, and yeah, you sort of race through it. That's what I mean. I think it's a propulsive summer read, and I mean that in the best way. May was to read a book that was either borrowed from the library or bought secondhand, and so I read The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. Now I have to say, I killed two birds with one stone with this, because I needed to read it for Sky Arts from Hay, because I was interviewing her for that, and she was an absolute joy. It's one that I have put off a little bit, because it was my gran's absolute favourite book of all time. And for those of you who've been around for a while, you'll know that when I start reading a book that I knew my gran loved, I get really emotional about it, because I know that like we can't have a conversation about it or anything, and that's, yeah, there's a certain sadness to it, but I totally get why it was one of her favourite books. This was one that I got a second-hand copy of. You can see I got it for $1.50. I had it on my shelves for ages, so I was thrilled to get to that, and I really enjoyed it. One book I didn't enjoy, and frankly pretty much detested in parts, was the book that was for June, and that was a book that matched what Mum or I were wearing in that video, which I would have linked down below. And I was wearing a green and white and green striped rugby shirt, and it matched the Penguin Crimes. Now, I also broke one of the rules with this book, which was I wanted the books that I picked for the prompts. That was verging on pick to pickle pepper. What I wanted was to pick books for the prompts from my shelves, but this actually picked up in Oxfam in West Kirby, because I knew it looked like the top, and it bit me a little bit, this one, because I thought the premise was fantastic, but I thought the writing about women and the pace were both bloody awful. So there we go. I have read another one of hers, which is about a detective solving a mystery from his hospital bed, I think it's a hospital bed, around the bones of King Richard being found somewhere. And I thought that was all right, but I feel like maybe me and Josephine have gone our ways. And what am I going to be reading for July's prompt, and what is it? In case you want to join in, July's prompt is to pick a book that you've been saving kind of for a rainy day or had on your shelves for ages and really want to get to. And I have wanted to read Pachinko for ages. This edition, the lovely Russell over at Ink and Paper blog sent me years ago when it came out, and it's even got a happy birthday note from Minjin Lee in it. It's recently been one of Dua Lipa's picks for her book club, and I want to kind of read along with that as much as I can. Although I'll be catching up really, because yeah, this one I haven't got to yet, and her book club's ages. Actually, speaking of catching up with, I'm also doing Kayla of Books and Lala's prompts this year, but I'm too behind on that one, so I need to catch up. One thing I will say is I do feel like with the prize and the show, my reading has been good, but it's definitely had moments that have been crammed for work reading, and I think a mixture of that and then reading some slow burns in June, and I will be doing a May, June and July wrap up in a week or so. Well, after the end of July, because we're still in it. I feel like that slowed me down and headed me almost into a slump, which leads to now where it's today is the 21st of July, and I've read 2 books so far this month. However, both of them are actually quite big books, and I have discovered this year my love for big books again, and that's something that I would like to take through to the second half of the year, because I've got some other big chunksters like Pachinko that I really want to head to, that I've kind of been putting off because, and I'll be really honest about this, I will sometimes think, how many smaller books could I read in the time that I read that bigger book? But when I love a big book, I love a big book. I'm no size queen or anything, but bigger can sometimes be better if it's done well. I mean, let's not go back to the Shards, let's not talk about that. I mean, that was where you were getting some big book energy, but actually it wasn't delivering for me. I've read a couple of Barbara Kingsolver's books. So I've read Poisonwood Bible, Demon Copperhead, enjoyed both of those immensely. I've been reading Kate Moss's Big Chunksters, and they've been fabulous. And it has reminded me that when you are in those bigger books and the world is so built and you're just totally immersed in it, it can be really, really brilliant. Definitely going to be heading into some more big books. Going forward with the rest of this year, I have recently had, you may have spotted, a bit of a sort out of the library, and there is a video of me sorting the shelves and then sorting the library, which will be coming on the channel, I think next Wednesday. And that was a mission. It took me about 2 days. I thought I might go insane. However, I've done it, and it has really kind of helped me think about reading going forward, which will basically, well, it will, what's the word? I don't want to use the word involve. Influence. My reading will influence the channel in terms of the fact that, and I am repeating this to myself a lot at the moment, you are not creating a channel to read. You're reading and then creating content about it for the channel, and that's something that I think is really, really important. And I was reminded by that earlier today when I was watching a new favourite channel of mine, which I'll link down below, which is Kat's Field Notes, and she was talking about how sometimes she forgets that reading is meant to be fun, and I think sometimes I forget that too. Now, that's not to say that when I'm reading for work it's not fun, because it is. I love the fact that I get to work in books a lot, and you know, it's not as much as I think everybody thinks, because I also have a part-time job where I work with libraries, which is not the same thing as working with books. I need to get that balance a bit more, is kind of the big thing that I'm looking forward to doing. But also I really want to shop my shelves more. I have had a bit of a cull. I have rearranged things a little bit. It was actually really good going through all the different shelves to remind myself what I had. The excitement that I feel like was slightly eluding me towards the end of June, when I'd read quite a few slow burns, read quite a lot of books that were giving me, quite a lot of books for work that were giving me the tingles of burnout, which I definitely had towards the end of last year. That's now gone, because I'm kind of fizzing with all this excitement about, oh, I've got all these books on my shelves and I can't wait to get to them, and it's really, really exciting. And that I'm really, really looking forward to. And I definitely want to get rid of the saving books for a rainy day thing. And I think that's what's so great about this prompt that I was mentioning that me and Mum will be doing for July, because it did make me sort of think, what have I been really, really looking forward to? And like, there were so many possibilities. There were some that were quite new or forthcoming, but I was like, no, this has got to be something that I've had on my shelves for a while. Keeping the library sorted is a big thing for me, because honestly, I've realised that the state of my library is very much like matches my mental state. So if the library's like really messy, I know my brain's all over the place. If it's tidy, then I know that, like, yeah, everything's good and I'm on an even keel. So that's something that I'd like to do. I'm looking at my notes now. In fact, I'll just bring them up a little bit here. I'll put them next to, I know, I haven't given them a name yet. It'll come to me at the right time. We're just getting to know each other. But when I went to buy some different bits for the library that you'll see in that video next week, where it's sorting the shelves and sorting the library, I couldn't leave IKEA without her, frankly. We'll just have a little tentacle appearing there. I feel like an user, it's very exciting. The big thing actually that's happening now is I did an event with Kate Moss on Tuesday just gone, on the 18th. So I think today actually is the 20th, not the 21st, as I said earlier. Whoops-a-days, but it's still the 201st day of the year. I know that because I meant to do this video yesterday, but I wasn't in the mood. And that's something else that I am definitely doing this year going forward, is reading by Win More, making it more fun, but also film by Win More. I'm aware that if you post on the same days, the algorithm prefers it. I kind of feel like giving the algorithm the finger, frankly. At the moment, for example, we've just been doing this sort of reading nook outside in the garden that's rainproof, so that you can sit outside all weathers. There's been a few storms where I headed in. Sometimes I just want to sit out there and read, or we've had a fox and her cubs visiting the garden a lot, so I just want to be out there seeing that and nature and stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I don't really fancy filming right now, and that's fine. Just like I know this may be a shock, but earlier this very month, I was like, I don't want to read for a week. Just don't feel like it. That's fine too. And I think sometimes I forget all of that. But I did an event with Kate on Tuesday, and that is my last event until September. And I am now taking the summer off from events, and I'm going to be taking a couple of weeks off my day job. So I can just have a bit of time at home to chill, make some content in advance, because I'd like to be a bit ahead of the game, so that if I do feel like I did yesterday, I was like, oh, I feel a bit sciencey and rubbish, or even like if I have to have an operation on my sinuses, which may well be happening, then I don't feel stressed. And I know I shouldn't feel stressed, and I'm sure there'll be people who say, don't beat yourself up, Sam, you beat yourself up too much. It's just how I am. And also, because books are part of my work, YouTube, Booksgram, everything does all feed into it in a way, but I want to make sure that that's in a way that's still really, really good fun. Not that any projects this year haven't been fun, it's just like, for example, there's been certain times where there's been peak points of reading where it's been like, whoa. I'll talk about that a bit more in my May, June, July wrap up actually, because there are some books that I read that I am not going to talk about because I'd like to reread them for various reasons. Anyway, I'm now taking that time off. I'm very excited for it. September is beginning to look quite bonkers, and October and November are too. That's all good though, because what I'm doing is really pacing things out and not trying to do 3 things in one weekend, which I think is super duper helpful. It's been slow so far for July, but I'm excited because on Instagram the other day, I took a photo of all of the 2023 releases that have come out and are ahead that I haven't read yet, and asked people to suggest which ones I should read. And there were 6 books actually. 6 books. There were 6 books that came very strongly like out as favourites, and I'm going to be reading those in a reading vlog soon. Another thing that I'm doing that's really exciting is a project where, and actually I found, speaking of Russell earlier, a pile of books that I got signed for him that I need to send him that I couldn't work out where they were. Turned out they were in a bottom drawer of a wardrobe, because that's safekeeping. I'm dreadful at that. If I leave something somewhere safe, safe means I'll forget where it is. I also found, actually, and this was exciting, I've been looking for this for ages, my signed A Little Life bag by Hanya Yanagihara. It was a really worthwhile thing. What is it that we're doing? I've just realised that I haven't said. So, we have 2 spare rooms. One is very much my mother's room, and that is turquoise. The other one has been green. It's been sort of a nude salmon that then started to like skin and freak me out. Then orange, because I thought that would be bright, and I don't actually really like orange that much. Now is going to be, I'm not going to say what colour it's going to be actually, but it's been decorated, and the inspiration is the Persephone bookshop in Bath, which used to be in London, but particularly the Bath one. And I think it's going to be, if it goes the way I'm hoping, a really lovely room for guests, but also another reading space. I've said it. And also another place that maybe I can put all of my Persephone books. So both the ones that I have read and I haven't read, and therefore can get away with having some more bookshelves somewhere. I mean, that could have been the thoughts behind it, could not. You tell me whether you think that was the thoughts behind it or not in the comments below. I said earlier this year I wanted to document every day of the year, or a little snapshot of every day of the year. And I'm aware that Savage Snapshots has gone very quiet, but that again, I've got a week off actually, well, just under a week off now, and I want to catch up with some of that. But there haven't been things necessarily every day or even every week that have been snapshotable, so that will be a sporadic channel. It was actually randomly my dad who messaged me and was like, what's happened to Savage Snapshots? I've not seen any of those recently. I was like, oh, all right, Dad, okay. But on that note, yeah, I would like to get back into reading vlogs, but I don't feel like I need to do one every week. I feel like that just needs to be, again, by whim. Whim is basically the big theme for the second half of the year. In terms of prizes and projects, prizes and projects and prompts, I'm going to carry on with the prompts that I'm doing for me and Mum's prompts, and if you want to join in, that would be lovely. I did look earlier, we've got over 200 people joining in on Storygraph, which is fab. And speaking of Mum, maybe we'll do something together. We were umming and ahhing about whether we're going to do the Booker Prize shortlist. I don't know why, but I haven't got excited about the long list coming out, and I guess over the last few years I've not been disinterested at all, but been a bit more like, oh, okay, we'll see what it is. What I really am hoping for though is that the long list just makes me go, whoa. That's what I want. I want a long list that's proper, whoa, and I'm just like, I want to bury myself in those books. Anyway, so that's something else that I would potentially do with Mum, but we're going to see what the long list and short list are like. I think that's it though. On the theme of whim, I feel like I'd also just like to fly by the seat of my pants a little bit more. And that goes for reading, that goes for the channel, that just goes for life in general. I've had a kind of quite planned and project-filled first half of the year. So and I'm hoping that may well happen again next year. But I'm hoping therefore, but I'm aiming therefore to have maybe half a year that's just a bit more like wild and free. I don't know. Oh, another thing that's coming back though, speaking of projects though, before I forget, is Crime Time with Pip is coming back. That will be every quarter. We did a video recently, which I'll link down below if you've missed it. And then even though I'm saying it's going to be whimsical, my reading going forward this year, I would like to, as I mentioned earlier, get to more non-fiction. I need to check how much translated fiction I've read this year, and also how many different countries I've read from, and therefore maybe be more statty at the end of the year when I do my sort of end of year wrap up before my end of year favourites. And on the note of wrap-ups, I would like to get my wrap-ups back into more of a rhythm and a routine, but I think because of reading for work, sometimes that throws me out a bit. Anyway, that was a lot of bookish and channel waffle. I would love to know in the comments down below what your reading or bookish highlights have been so far this year. What have your savage reads highlights of the year been so far? Is there anything particular on the channel that I've done that you've really enjoyed, or on social media or elsewhere? All my social media and everything is always linked down below, by the way, so if you want to head to those, you can. I would really like to hear what you would like to see on the channel in the second half of the year. Editing Simon here. I would also like an emoji of an octopus thanking you. Here's to the year so far, and here's to the year ahead. I hope it has lots of fabulous books for all of us, but also just lovely, fabulous, non-bookish times too. I'm gonna go. Thank you as always for watching. It's lovely to have a chat with you all. If you haven't subscribed and you want to, please do. If you want to like this, that would be lovely. And if you want to check out, like I said, my Instagram, my threads, my other channel, Patreon, wishlist, anything like that, it's all down below. I will see you in another video very soon. It'll be Sunday and it'll be my books of the year so far. I'm quite excited for that. I haven't seen that many. I've only seen, I think, Lauren and Jen do one so far. Where are they all? If you've done one, let me know in the comments down below and I'll go and have a nebby at it. Anyway, I'm going now. Goodbye. Bye.